Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Hello everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for this Saturday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, meteorologist with the National Weather Service. Up first here on the hazardous weather graphic, it's a high wind warning out currently here for St. Lawrence Island to the Bering Strait coast. Also in combination with a high surf advisory, southerly winds there, a front or system moving to the west. Kick the winds up, gusts 65 miles per hour, and that's going to continue into Saturday evening. Then the winds will begin to shift and become more easterly, southeasterly, and then easterly, and slowly begin to diminish as we move in and through the day on Sunday. Down to the south, high wind warnings out for the central and eastern Aleutians here. Big storm coming into the area currently, and about starting around 6 p.m. this evening, looking for winds to increase 65 to 75 miles per hour with gusts to 100 miles per hour. That'll first kick in to the AKwx area, and then not long after, that'll include the eastern Aleutians here. It's for the Alaska Peninsula, only expecting winds to about 60, 65 miles an hour in gusts, so no warnings there. And then winter weather advisories here for the southwest coast and Bristol Bay. That for winds as that front pushes up toward the area there. Winds will kick up to possibly as high as 55 miles per hour, may get 1 to 3 inches of snow, so could see some blowing snow, reduced visibilities in some areas. Moving on to the satellite, you can see the huge cloud shield out here associated with that next deepening system, deepening rapidly, swinging right up toward AKwx there, and the front here coming up, pushing clouds and moisture into the Pribilof Islands, back down across the eastern Aleutians, higher stuff spreading into the Bristol Bay area and also northward there. Another system weakening as this one takes over. Kept the winds going, as I mentioned, across St. Lawrence Island today. Otherwise, clear and cold over the interior with fairly clear skies all the way down into the North Gulf Coast. Still have a weak system off the Panhandle that kept clouds and rain and snow going in that area, but nothing too terribly heavy. See some of that moisture sliding northwestward. Getting a few breaks down there across Prince of Wales Island with the main cloud shield here staying down to the across the Queen Charlotte Islands. Otherwise, again, you can see clouds dissipating as they try to push into the western interior of Alaska, with actually this system pulling back to the north there and the other one strengthening farther out to the southwest. You can see the really cloud-free here over the eastern interior, and the cold temperatures into northwest Canada, well below zero over there in the Northwest Territories. But some of this cloudiness getting into the eastern North Gulf Coast, and a few light snow showers occurring mainly over the mountains there, and a little more extensive though over the southeast coast here, with trailing off to the south, more of a mixed rain and snow pattern breaking out, as I said, this afternoon across Prince of Wales Island. And still pretty windy, Northern Link Canal, pretty gusty winds going on today, Copper River Delta, but winds coming down from what they were yesterday for Prince William Sound. And light winds, Cook Inlet, southwest, all interior Alaska. And out to the west, that pretty good system. They're already down to 964 millibars. Moving about this position roughly around 4 p.m. Saturday today. And the tight pressure field already northerlies on the increase here back out over the western Aleutians. And then we've got the southwesterlies and southerlies on the increase. Main front pushing the Alaska Peninsula, gusty winds and rain there up across the Pribilofs today. And then with this front farther to the north, had the gust 65 miles per hour occurring across St. Lawrence Island with a high wind warning out in that area, along with, again, high surf advisories. For tonight, very intense system pulls to near or just south of the Pribilof Islands, 945 millibars. You can see a very tight pressure field surrounding that center. And again, that's going to kick those winds up west-southwest here for the Aleutians up to, well, could see gusts as high as I mentioned, up to 100 miles per hour. rain through this area, colder air coming back in from the northwest, so I'll be mixing with snow. Snow back up through here, north of the front, snow. And again, those winds turning easterly there for St. Lawrence Islands. That's going to try to push that moisture band back to the west a little bit. Stays clear mostly here over interior Alaska. Look for the winds to increase so dramatically here over the southwest interior with increasing snow into Bristol Bay, tending to possibly mix with rain back along the front here out over the Bering Sea, but staying fair over south central Alaska. Look for a little bit of an increase in the moisture here over the North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound area, but nothing significant. And I might be getting a little ambitious clearing it out this much over the Panhandle, but this system will stay to the south. That snow will stay to the east, and this moisture will stay to the west. For tomorrow, Sunday, pretty good day there for the southeast coast again, with just maybe a chance of some moisture hitting the Hyder Stewart area, possibly Metlakatla, but pretty good conditions up to the north. Increasing clouds, increasing chances of moisture here for south central Alaska. And back to the west, that slow-moving, intense storm keeps the high wind warnings out through the afternoon here, even for the central Aleutians. Definitely a very windy day coming up, possibly damaging winds for the Fox Islands, and windy with rain or snow, Alaska Peninsula, up into Bristol Bay. Winter weather advisories, as I mentioned, out for Bristol Bay on up to the Yukon Delta. Not really a big precipitation producer, definitely more of a wind producer than rain or snow with this system. And again, this moisture actually starting to get up to possibly north of the Alaska range there, but not much will. But some clouds probably will slide on up. Otherwise, clear and cold over the interior up there. And then for Monday, front weakens considerably, pushes into the southeast coast. So look for periods of rain or snow with that on the light side, and that'll extend back along the North Gulf Coast. Of course, elevation, inland, snow, light snow. And the main low center now really weakening, 980 millibars tracking to AKwx there with rain and snow back up along the Bristol Bay area and the Alaska Peninsula. Next system bringing more wind, rain, and snow into the southern Bering Sea, spreading up to the Pribilofs eastward to the Alaska Peninsula. And lows for tonight, 20 to 35 below here over the eastern interior, coldest up over the Yukon Flats, but North Orientok, those areas could fall below 30 below. Single numbers warm into the mid-upper 20s along the southwest coast, upper 30s to near 40 for the Aleutians. And for Sunday, tomorrow afternoon, staying below zero in the east, near freezing here out along the coast, into the lower 40s for the Alaska Peninsula, 20s to mid-30s for the Panhandle. And for the lows Monday morning, milder, but still well below zero, 20, 30 below, call it. And single numbers out to the west, mildest Alaska Peninsula, teens to lower 30s over the Panhandle. Otherwise, south central Alaska, a little milder with the, of course, will be tomorrow night too, with the, will be Monday morning, with the clouds and increasing moisture, and the highs in the afternoon mostly in the 20s south, and a little below zero up to the north.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Moving on to flying weather, with a big storm coming in from the west here, a band IFR will reach the coastline late tonight into early tomorrow morning from St. Lawrence Island right on down across Nunivak Island into Bristol Bay and the Alaska Peninsula. Kodiak Island kind of in between there, a little marginal VFR on the east side early tomorrow, which will be really covering much of the Gulf of Alaska, southern Kenai Peninsula up into Prince William Sound, as well as northward across the Wrangell Mountains to the eastern Alaska Range, and then down across the southeast coast. Some marginal VFR up here over the northeast interior with a chance of some IFR southern Yukon Flats there in the mountains or the hills in that area. And then for tomorrow afternoon, improving here along the southeast coast in the north and out along the coast, but IFR now down over the southeast part. IFR slipping on up into the western Prince William Sound area and extending back across the Kenai Peninsula. IFR slowly advancing northward across southern Cook Inlet here up to maybe the southern Alaska Range, definitely for Kodiak Island, and some IFR southern Kuskokwim Mountains to the Kilbrooks, and then IFR now kind of slipping back to the south a little bit from Nunivak Island out to the west, just covering the Pribilofs, are very close with marginal VFR on down to the south. More IFR showing up farther out to the west. And then for Monday morning, we've got some IFR now up along the western central Arctic coast, locally the north slope, but all that north of the Brooks Range. from the range southward, pretty good here, VFR in the interior. And then picking up more widespread IFR for Monday morning here up into Cook Inlet with the IFR along and just looks like just to the east of the Alaska Range. IFR Prince William Sound to around Cordova, Cape Yakataga, and then IFR over the northern and eastern part of the southeast coast. And then for Monday afternoon, band IFR here from the Kenai Peninsula, Prince William Sound, along the Coast Range in northern Lynn Canal, and then down over toward the border there for the southeast coast. IFR northern Bering Sea, and also over Bristol Bay, good VFR in the interior till you get north of the mountains up there toward the western Arctic coast, improving out here over the Aleutians and the central and western Bering. Anaktuvuk VFR, same forecast for Adigan, and Lake Clark and Merrill VFR, possibly becoming marginal in the afternoon, rainy though VFR. Windy VFR. Isabel, though, could be marginal throughout the day. Mentasta starting out marginal, might become VFR in the afternoon, while Tanita has a chance of seeing some marginal VFR, possibly on the eastern entrance as you roll through the afternoon. Portage, marginal, becoming VFR, and Chilkoot and White, marginal VFR, becoming VFR. Freezing levels, 2,000 to 4,000 feet here ahead of that storm here across the Alaska Peninsula. Otherwise, at the surface, Nunivak Island, Kodiak, up along the coast, 2,000 feet now. Down toward Dixon Entrance. Icing the big storm. Narrow band of widespread moderate here coming up into Kodiak Island, but really the front itself, not all that moisture charged, so just some areas of light to very isolated moderate rime icing with the front. A little more extensive back here over the central eastern Aleutians and Bering Sea areas, and most of this will be off into Canada. Jet stream tomorrow, cold upper trough here, northwest Canada, so 40 to 50 knot winds coming around that, keeping it cold here over the eastern and central interior into south central Alaska. The trough keeping the jet well to the south of the Panhandle. Also this system out here keeping a stronger jet to the south. High pressure over the Chukchi Sea, keeping this jet up to the north. And for 9,000 feet, big storm here into the southeast Berings, very strong winds, northwest 80 to 90 knots there, right across the Aleutians, 45 to 60 knots or 55 to 70 knots here along the southwest coast. Winds on the increase throughout the day tomorrow for Kodiak, 25 to 30. Also here over the southwest interior, central interior, easterlies picking up to about 25. Lighter up along the Arctic coast, lighter across the Panhandle. And for 3,000 feet, southeast coast, weak low here, south of Dixon Entrance. So just 5 to 10 knot winds there. 15 for the Gulf of Alaska, Copper River Basin pretty light, picking them up 30 to 40 out of the east over the west central interior. And 65 to 75 knot winds here in advance of that center from the Alaska Peninsula right up across Cape Newenham, and wrapping back around 85 to 90 knot winds here, wrapping back in on the southwest side of that storm. And with that could be some severe turbulence here for the Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutians, all the way out to Adak with moderate chop across the southwest.
Some initial milestones for the Aviation Systems Capacity Program have already been accomplished and are currently being tested for future use in airports.
We've all seen helicopters flying around, but do you know how they work? For some answers, we turn to Johnny Alonso.
For over 60 years, the helicopter has been one of the most versatile types of transportation around. They have the ability to fly forward, backwards, sideways, rise and descend vertically, and hover motionless in the air. Helicopters have been credited with saving over 3 million lives by transporting critically wounded people from accidents and war zones. They're also used for things like helping the police fight crime, fighting forest fires, and simple tasks like checking our roadway conditions. But have you ever wondered how helicopters fly? Well, for some answers, I spoke with NASA Langley researcher Mike Watts at the Coast Guard Air Station, Elizabeth City.
Johnny, to really understand how a helicopter flies, first let's go back to a fixed-wing world, a regular airplane, the kind with wings and an engine. Now, a fixed wing has an engine, a jet, or a propeller to push you through the air, and that moves air over the wings, which provides lift that keeps it in the air.
I see.
And obviously from this helicopter, you can see we don't have normal wings, and we don't have a jet or a propeller on it to push you forward through the air. But what you do have is the main rotor blades. You can notice that these are shaped a lot like wings for a fixed wing. The way you get them moving through the air is these rotate around in a circle, and that moves them through the air. They're shaped just like a wing, so that provides a lift force that lifts the helicopter off the ground.
Cool. So you've tapped in on how a helicopter lifts off the ground. Can you explain to me how you control the altitude?
Sure. The way you control the altitude is by generating more lift or more upward force. And the way you do that is you pitch the rotor blade to a higher angle in relation to the wind. That generates more lift, and that lifts it off the ground. Okay. To go down, you just reduce the angle of the blades that generates less lift, and the gravity settles you down into the ground.
So this is the main rotor. What is this?
This is called a tail rotor.
Yeah.
As you can see, it looks like a main rotor or a propeller on its side. When you turn the main rotor blades, the body of the helicopter wants to go against the rotation. So if the blades are turning this way, the body wants to go this way. Well, to keep straight, you have to provide something to counter that turn, that force pushing it sideways. So we provide a force that keeps it straight. And that's what the tail rotor provides.
Wow.
If you want to go to the left, you provide more force, and it goes this way. If you want to go to the right, you provide less force, and the torque turns it this way.
So Mike, you briefly explained to us how you keep the helicopter straight. How do you make it go forward?
But you make it go forward by providing a force to push it forward. Just like in a regular airplane that has a propeller, the propeller is providing a force to push the airplane forward. We need to provide that some way. If you think of the main rotor as a disc in the air, and it's got a force going through the center of it, that's what we talked about as a thrust.
Right.
That holds it in the air. If you tilt it forward a little bit, it's going to pull the helicopter forward. If you tilt it back, it's going to pull the helicopter back. If you want to go sideways, you just tilt it to the side, and it pulls you sideways like that. And so you have the force pulling you backwards, forwards, and sideways.
Sure.
And if you actually take that disc and turn it all the way on its side, it's like a propeller. It's pulling you all the way forwards. And there's a concept being looked at by the Marines now called the V-22 tilt rotor. And that is to turn the rotors on their sides and make them propellers. You get the benefits of going farther and faster for a fixed wing or a regular airplane, and you can take off and land vertically, just like a helicopter.
That's all there is to it.
That's all there is to it.
That's all there is to it. Mike, thanks for coming out and showing us everything about helicopters.
My
today.
pleasure, my pleasure.
You got the keys, man?
Oh yeah, let's go fire it up.
Come on, let's do it.
All right, let's
You got an
go.
alarm? Let's go. So that's how it works. I'd like to thank the U.S. Coast Guard for letting us use their facilities here in Elizabeth City. So we're taking off now. Let's go to my house. Where are we going to park?
Thanks for joining us on this edition of Destination Tomorrow. I'm Steele McGonigal.
And I'm Kara O'Brien. And for all of us here at NASA, we'll see you next time.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Looking at today's sea ice analysis, continue to expand here, especially for what we saw yesterday along the western Arctic coast. Kotzebue Sound now iced over, and Koyuk Bay looks like back to iced over conditions with a little bit more ice in eastern Norton Sound, and really not much change down here along the southwest coast. And with the southerly winds here expected to end St. Lawrence Island, actually going to go more easterly here, and so continuing the sea ice growth expected for the next 4 or 5 days. On to the marine forecast, north 35, gust 50. Still looking at storm force gusts for northern Lynn Canal tomorrow, 30 knots, Stevens Passage down to 15 for Clarence Strait. Northwest 15 to 20 on the south coast. North coast easterlies at 15, so pretty good conditions in those areas. And then for Monday, west-southwest 25 to 25 knots on the south coast. Some gales up on the north coast, with seas building at about 13 feet. Northern Lynn Canal coming down to 20 knots, southeast 25 for Stevens Passage, and even higher 30 knots for Clarence Strait. And for Prince William Sound, the North Gulf Coast, here 25 knots out of the east for tomorrow, and that'll be coming up especially in the afternoon. Northeast 20, western North Gulf Coast. Barron, southeast 20. Gales coming into the picture tomorrow afternoon near Kachemak Bay, and pretty brisk winds up to the forelands here in southern Cook Inlet at 30 knots. And then for the Monday forecast, we've got small craft advisories up here on the north side of Cook Inlet, and still 30 knots south, east 35 for Kachemak Bay, otherwise a lot lighter and more southerly here for the Barren Islands into the western North Gulf Coast, but that's behind the front. Ahead, you're looking at southerlies of 40 knots here for the eastern coast, and east 30 knots in Prince William Sound with 6-foot seas. Kodiak Island, southeast 30 here on the east side, Chillicothe Strait east 25. South increasing to 35 knots in the afternoon from Sitkinak to probably Chignik, and then southwest 60 on down to Cape Sarachef. North side 45 knots tomorrow, 50 knots out of the southeast. A storm warning out for Bristol Bay. And then on Monday, those come down to 25 knots from a more easterly direction. Strong winds continue here across the peninsula, 45 on the north side, sustained 60 knots, 40-foot seas on the south side, southwest 40 sweeping up toward Kodiak Island. Otherwise lighter, Chillicothe Strait east of 20. Out in the Aleutians, 40 to 60 knot winds coming tomorrow, forecast with 24 to 35-foot seas. Big winds here, hurricane force wind warnings. For the eastern central Aleutians, 65 to 75 knots, strongest here on the north side, and these seas up to over 50 feet, 56 feet here, or 55 or so here on the south side of both the Fox Islands and the eastern Aleutians. And then for Monday, coming down, back down to gales and storms, 35 to 45 knots for Adak and Atka, 50 to 55 knots on Alaska Island, and then 40 to 45 extends all the way out to Shimi and Attu. And along the southwest coast tomorrow, storm warnings, east-southeast 50 knots, east 35 for the Pribilofs, 45 knots, St. Matthew Island, 40 knots up there at St. Lawrence Island, with seas 20 to 23 feet here over the central and eastern Bering. And then on Monday, lighter winds, northwest 25 now for the Pribilofs, northeast 25 knots along the southwest coast, seas still up to 9 to 11 feet. Gales, St. Lawrence Island, 35 knots to 12-foot seas. Beaufort Sea Coast, light winds on the east side. Central Coast picking up to about 20, then a little shade lighter than that, but from Cape Beaufort south to Wales, east-southeast, 30 knots with 9 to 11-foot seas. And then the outlook for Monday, got some gales here with the area from Wales up to Cape Thompson, somewhere in between at 25, back down to 25 on the western coast, northeast 20, Central Coast. Light winds, part of the eastern coast, looking at the far eastern toward Demarcation Point, picking up to 20. And for tonight, pretty fair over the interior. Look for some increasing moisture chances. Prince William Sound, some that's sneaking up out of the Gulf there, drying out over the Panhandle. High wind warning, central eastern Aleutians, gusts 100 miles an hour tonight. Winter weather advisories across the southwest interior with winds kicking up to 55 miles per hour. Snow and blowing snow late tonight. More likely tomorrow, as this front pushes eastward to Kodiak, spreads a chance of snow up into south central Alaska. Of course, best chance down along the coast back to Kodiak. Could maybe get a little mixed with rain, clear and cold over the interior. And a nice day for the southeast coast. And then for Monday, that system weakens, chance of moisture down south, clear and cold up in the north. And the next storm brings gale force winds back into the western Aleutians.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.